I have some unfortunate news regarding this Fujitsu Eagle that is stuffed into the rack that has my PDP-1144 in it. I naively thought that this SC121 SMD controller card could be used to control the Eagle because the Eagle is also an SMD interface drive. However, upon digging deeper into it, the Eagle is not just SMD, it is modified SMD. And this card is not fast enough. As a matter of fact, the PDP-1144 is not fast enough for a modified SMD drive. So the controller card has to have a buffer built into it to receive the data at the speed that the Eagle is pumping it out and then slow it down for the PDP-11 to handle it. And there's only 2 of those cards that were made. One is made by Emulex, the other one was made by DEC themselves, and despite hunting for months, I can't find either one. However, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. In order to understand where I'm coming from with this line of thinking, we need to first think about what we want to do with the PDP-1144 here. Every machine in this room serves a purpose to teach me something unique. The Centurion is all about teaching me big hard drives and learning obscure architectures. The Bendix G15 is about learning what vacuum tube computing was like in the 1950s. The Data 620 and the LGP21 are evolutions of that thinking, bringing us into the transistorized era. The Data General Nova 1210 here is a desktop-sized way of playing with core memory and learning magtape systems, and the PDP-1144 here is all about learning supercomputing. But that sentence doesn't make any sense because this is not a supercomputer. The PDP-1144 is the last non-LSI PDP-11 that was ever built, and I think it's really cool. It has a phalanx of cards inside of it making up the CPU, and you can push it pretty far, up to 4 megabytes of memory with a ton of expansion. But none of that makes it a supercomputer. It's actually kind of slow. But this is the perfect vessel for learning about something like this. This is the front panel for an FPS 100 array processor. And an array processor is effectively a supercomputer. This particular one was an add-on meant to be used with a PDP-11 to turn it into something that they called super minis. Now, I have the front panel and a full board set for an FPS 100, but I don't have the backplane, and that's proving to be a bit of a holdup, because without schematics or a backplane to pull reference from, we gotta kind of figure it out the hard way. And that is progressing in the background, albeit very slowly. However, that means that while that's going on, we still need to do something with the 1144, because the way it's currently set up is not at all ready to interface with an FPS 100. And the biggest issue is going to be this Fujitsu Eagle down here. First of all, I don't have a controller card to even use it, but second of all, this is the only rack that I have for PDP-11 shenanigans in this room. And the Fujitsu Eagle takes up way too much space. But we still need storage of some kind, so we need to go smaller. And in that regard, I actually have some good news, because when I received this 1144, it came with an SDI controller and a couple of hard drives. That is this hard drive right here. This is an RA70. So we're gonna kind of do things a little bit out of order today. We're gonna try and get the hard drives plugged into it and see if they can boot and see if there's anything on them. And then after that, we'll think about getting these 2 floppy drives up and going. First things first, let's get the Fujitsu Eagle out of the way. I really love this drive, but I don't think it's gonna work with this setup. Plus, it's huge and weighs an absolute ton. Next, let's get a tray for the RA70s into place. I'll just measure up where the rails are going to go, then I'll bolt them into place and slide the tray in. And it wasn't actually this easy. I had to do a lot of clearance cutting to make it fit. But with the tray properly in place now, let's set the pair of RA70s on it. I'll plug in the SDI cables into each drive, which are surprisingly small. Then I'll plug ribbon cables into this operator control panel. And SDI, or Standard Disk Interconnect, is a really neat disk drive interface that DEC came up with. It's essentially just 4 wires going to the drive, and that's it. There is controller state, drive state, controller command and data, and drive response and data. I think it's awesome that they achieved high-speed drive control and data with just 4 wires. Unfortunately, SDI never really caught on, and I believe this was really only used with the RA series of drives that DEC built. This is very jank, and all we're doing is just a simple live or dead test because I've never put any power into these RA70s. But I think in order for the RA70s to spin up, we gotta have this operator control panel thing hooked up. And I've just got these like super short ribbon cables, so it's very, very jank. On this control panel though, I believe that the LEDs here are going to be run, fault, ready, write protect, port A, port B for the 2 drives that this control panel supports. So what we're hoping to see is that these 2 lights come up, the drives spin up, and they go ready. We don't want to see any faults happen here. But like I said, I've never put any power into these, so here goes nothing. Let's go ahead and flip the power supply on. Both of the fault lights have come on, and nothing has happened. The jank continues. The operator control panel here does not derive its +5 volts for the logic on it from the drives, which would have been convenient. Instead, it pulls it from this J1 plug here. Unfortunately, this is supposed to go to like a real deal proper DEC power supply that has like DC OK, and obviously I'm not going to get that from the generic ATX power supply that I'm using to power this up with. So I just kind of wired it all together into the 5 volts off of one of the Molex connectors here. Hopefully it doesn't go up in smoke. No 2 ways about it. Let's just go ahead and flip the switch. Oh, all sorts of lights have come on. Oh, the drives are spinning up. One of them has a fault light. Write protect is on for both. Oh, both have fault lights now. And they're spinning down. Oh, that's not great. It's been a couple hours. Some progress has been made. Not much. One of the big problems was this cheapo 750 watt PSU that I picked up. The 5 volt rail on this thing sitting at about 4.7 volts, which is not great. So I've got a Corsair in there right now. I'll go ahead and flip the power switch on. This one sometimes doesn't want to spin up, so we'll see how it goes. Looks like it's going to play ball this time. Both drives are coming up to speed. Y'all got to hear this. This sounds awesome, by the way. So as awesome as that sounds, both drives are up to speed, but the fault light gets lit up on both of them. Now, the way that this thing is built is that you can push the button here, and it will flash a hexadecimal code in you. This one is flashing 110010. So that's going to be 32. It says that's an ECM failure. Let's check the other one. That one is going to be 110100. That's going to be 34. That also comes up as an ECM failure. That's the control logic board on the bottom. That's not great. Now I can push the button, the fault button again, and it clears it out and says ready, but I don't believe for a minute that it's ready. I think if I try to access it in the actual computer, it's gonna fight me. Well, I was letting both drives spin for a little bit just to see if I could loosen up the bearings, and I spun them down to give them a little bit of a breather, and I went to spin them back up again, and this one let out the magic smoke and is now unresponsive. But I've been poring over this and I can't find a single component that looks like it would have caught fire. Maybe this big black mystery box here. Judging by the smell, it smells a little wonky, but really these things are a sandwich. So if anything in the middle of this let loose, it could have just poured its stank all over everything, and that could be what I'm smelling. But I have this RA72 as well, and it's like an evolution of the RA70. And I don't have any documentation on this thing, but it uses the same type of SDI interface and the same operator control panel over here. Now this drive was also unhealthy. It had some tantalums that had exploded and cratered the PCB, so I've bodged some electrolytics in their place. I know that's not ideal, but it's what I had on hand. Figured there wasn't much I could lose by trying that, so let's spin this up. So that startup sequence sounds very different than anything that I'm used to, but the drive did not fault out and it went ready. I think this is a functioning hard drive. That's pretty exciting. We're 1 for 3, which is not great, but that's something we can work with. The RA72 has been sitting here spun up for a little while now, and it sounds really healthy, but obviously all is not well. I've spun it up and down about 6 times, and about half of the time it faults out on spin up, so something is still unhappy. The good news is that I don't think there's anything mechanically wrong with it. There's no head crashes or anything bad like that going on, so it's purely electrical related. Although I don't like pinning all of my hopes and dreams on a single drive, so we do have an alternative option here. This is an RZ56. This is also a hard drive built by DEC, and this one is SCSI. And I do happen to have a SCSI controller. I have no idea if this drive is healthy though, because it requires a SCSI signal in order to spin up. So even if I put power into it right now, it doesn't do anything. So we need to get at least a SCSI card in here, hopefully also the UDA50, the controller cards for this RA72 in here, but we have other problems before we can even get to those controller cards. This is the 1144 setup that we left off with in the previous episode. We've got our console card up here, the commercial instruction set cards right here, the CPU cards, 1 meg of memory, 2 Grant continuity cards, and a terminator. And if I flip the power switch on, DC on comes up, the run light comes up, the run light goes off, and if we look at the terminal, we can see it says console version 3.40C, program console halted at 165714. This is exactly what it was doing before. Because it comes up, it's trying to boot off of a hard drive or something, and nothing exists, so it halts. However, there's some weirdness going on. Clearly the terminal is receiving just fine, but if well, you can see that the cursor's already jumping all over the place. If I just try to type, well, that time we got V. Oh, there we go. We made it through most of brown before it freaked out. Let's try that again. Oh, that time E didn't. E gave me some Q's, even though I didn't type Q. Space didn't work, and yeah, I don't know if this is a terminal problem or a problem with the 1144. I've used this terminal with the Nova 1210, so I know that it's working correctly, but something wonky is going on here such that it can receive fine, but whatever is sent back to the 1144 is not echoed correctly or received correctly. However, we've got even bigger fish to fry than this. If we flip the power switch off here, I can now hear myself think as the incredibly loud fans spin down. But it looks like we have a boatload of slots. But if we look a little closer, you can see that it's actually composed of multiple different backplanes. So this primary backplane ends right here, and this is a special backplane just for the CPU, memory, and 2 what they call SPC slots. This secondary backplane is your primary expansion backplane, but they're not actually connected in either way. We have to connect those 2 backplanes up with an extension card, and that extension card looks like this. It's literally just 2 cards that plug into the 2 slots with a giant ribbon cable in the middle. I think this ribbon cable is specifically 2 meters long for like impedance matching or something like that. But to install this, we just pull the terminator out. We take our new one here and we slot it in, just like that. Now the two backplanes, the UNIBUS is expanded across them. We can now use this for expansion, and the terminator has to go in the last slot of this backplane. And between here and the terminator, there's a lot of empty slots, and we have to do something about that because there are certain grant continuity lines that pass through cards that are installed in those slots. But if nothing is installed in those slots, that continuity line is broken. So you need a little card like this one right here. This is a NPG and bus grant continuity card. It is a G7273. If you look on this side here, there's about 8 lines that are all jumpered together, and then there's 2 lines on the front that are jumpered together here. So you take this, you install it into slots C and D, the center slots of the UNIBUS, and this continues that grant continuity to the next slot. So you're gonna need a bunch of these to fill up all the empty slots. I have 3 more, which is not enough, but I do have some little things that are tiny. They've been like hacked up, but they do the exact same thing. I can see the same jumpers on the backside. So I need to just install all of these to get the continuities all the way down to the terminator at the end. Then we can flip the power on and discover new problems. So we'll rotate the switch. Console CP didn't start. That's not good. That's not supposed to happen. It should be behaving exactly the same, but it's not. And I have a theory as to why. One of the continuity cards that I'm using is a voltmeter card that was supplied by Mark. Thank you so much for that, Mark. And we can see that our +5 is sitting at 5.33 volts. A little high, but that's okay. Our -15 is at -14.9. Our +15 is at +14.9. That all looks great. But let's flip the power off. Let me hear my thoughts again. And we're gonna move this card to a different slot. I'm just gonna go ahead and pull out this one that's about halfway down, and we'll slot it into that spot back there. And let's flip the power back on. And look at that, my +15 volt rail has died completely. All that's changed is I went from slot 1 to slot 4. Same backplane, but our 15 volt rail is not making it to those slots. Sitrep, we have 3 major problems that we're trying to tackle here. The first is that we were having strange terminal issues. The second is that we have hard drive problems. And the third is that we have weird backplane stuff going on. So let's address each of these 3 individually. And the first is that the terminal issue was not an issue at all. The ADM3A just was not playing nicely with the 1144 here. As soon as I plugged in this Weiss terminal, it all worked perfectly. The second problem is hard drives. Plan A was to use these 2 RA70s, but both of these have failures on the electronics. Plan B was this RA72 over here, and while it did go ready earlier, it has since stopped doing that. So the electronics on it are also failing. So Plan C was this RZ56. This is a SCSI drive, and the SCSI card that I thought I could use was this one. This is a USDC 1158 SCSI controller, but no documentation exists anywhere for this thing. So we have no idea how to get this set up or how to use it. I did plug it into the primary backplane here and plug it into the RZ56 and nothing happens. So either this is not meant for hard drives, or I don't know how to set it up correctly to send the startup signal to the hard drive. The last problem that we're dealing with is this backplane here. Whenever we extend to it, the CPU then crashes and we can never really get it to behave. Not only that, it seems like we're losing voltage about halfway through. So something is very wrong with this backplane. Or is there? You see, this is supposed to be a DD11K backplane, but if we look right here on the side, it says RK611. Turns out that this backplane here is swappable, and this particular RK611 is a specially wired backplane for an RK06 hard drive and controller cards. I think it takes about 5 or 6 controller cards, and so we can never actually use this because I don't have any of those controller cards, nor do I have an RK06 hard drive. This is a largely useless backplane to us. However, I do happen to have this, which is a UNIBUS extension chassis, and inside of it is a 9-slot DD-11K backplane, which means I can rip it out of here, swap it into our 1144, and get back up to normal 1144 operation. Since I've had such rotten luck with hard drives today, I'm gonna kind of swap focus, and we're gonna do a backplane swap right quick. To get this backplane out, a lot of stuff has to come apart. There are 4 screws on the front holding the edge of the card cage in place. Then there are 4 more screws at the back securing the backplane itself. After all 8 of those have been removed, I then need to disconnect all 3 power plugs from the power supply, which is finicky at best. Then the backplane and card cage can be lifted free of the overall structure. Once that's separate, there are 4 more screws that go through the backplane into the card cage. With those 4 removed, I finally have the backplane free and clear. Next up is getting the RK611 backplane out of the 1144, and first things first on it is removing all the power plugs. Then, just like the other backplane, there are 4 screws holding this one to the card cage. With those 4 screws removed, the backplane comes right out. And with them side by side, it's obvious how differently they're wired up. If I were more familiar with the system, I would have picked up on the difference earlier. With the new backplane fully installed, let's topple this beast over so I can install some cards. And all I'm putting in are grant continuity cards to carry the BG and NPG signals all the way to the last slot for the terminator. Moment of truth, will it boot with the new backplane? Power's coming up. No. I'm very upset about something. Well, that didn't go very well. This is a DD-11-DK, and it came out of that expansion box, and the expansion box doesn't generate plus 12 and minus 12. It only generates plus 15 and minus 15. And so what they did to compensate for that is these almost invisible jumpers right here, which are in clear plastic tubing, connect plus 12 to plus 15 and minus 12 to minus 15. I did not see these, so there was a direct short on those on my power supply, which angered a whole lot of things. And hopefully didn't damage too much. Oh man, okay. We're gonna remove those jumpers and try it again, I guess. Jumpers have been cut. Let's see if we heard anything. All right, we'll turn the power on here. My 15 volt rails have come back. We got console version 3.4 0C program. That's good news. We're not on the extended backplane yet. It should have halted by now. That's not good news. That's a problem. Okay, let's check all of our voltages here. I do believe that you're going to be ground. So this should be plus 5 volts. That's good. This should be plus 15. That's good. This should be minus 12. That's good. Plus 12 is good. Minus 15 is good. And we should have a plus 5D in here. That also looks good. So all of our voltages are good, but our CPU is not doing what it's supposed to do. I think one of my grant cards was unhappy. I'll flip the power switch on here. We get console, program, then halted at 165,714, exactly like it was supposed to do. I can examine, say 100. There's nothing in there. I can deposit 100, and we'll deposit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we'll examine 100 again, and that value's in memory. I think everything's working, but we're still only on the primary backplane. So let's extend over to the secondary backplane and see if we can get back to this same screen. Secondary backplane is now fully populated with grant continuity cards. I'm a little nervous about that one that has the voltmeters on it. When that one was in the primary backplane, that's what was causing the CPU to hang. But, well, let's just see. Program version 3.40 halted, yes! We're getting proper termination off of the second backplane. This should be totally functional We finally got a win. Oh man. Well, the 1144 is healthy. I absolutely did not have backplane swap on my bingo card for today, but that seems to have gotten us there, and we didn't even injure anything with that weird jumper problem that we had. However, we are 0 for 5 on hard drives here. So we're in kind of a rough space with hard drives, but if I'm being honest, these hard drives are all way too new for me anyways. I have a rule in this room of nothing newer than 1984, and all of these hard drives violate that rule. But there is one more hard drive I have that I had forgotten about until like 15 minutes ago that doesn't violate that rule. This is a Priam 15450. It's a dual 14-inch platter, 160 megabyte hard drive from 1983, I believe. This one was very graciously donated by Mr. David Reed. So Mr. Reed, if you're watching, thank you so much. And I honestly thought that I didn't have anything in here that I could actually use this drive with, but I was looking through the documentation for this card right here, which is an Emulex SC121 SMD controller card. I actually thought I could use this with the Fujitsu Eagle, but it turns out that I can't. However, in the drive supported for this card, it shows the Priam 15450. So we can actually marry these two together, plug them into our PDP-1144 here, and get it going. And that's going to be, I think, the perfect combination for this tower of power that we're building here. However, this drive does have some problems because it's Usagi Electric. Of course, everything in here has problems. It seems that something bounced into the circuit board on the front here at some point in time way in the past, broke some transistors, which then proceeded to rust out. But we have full schematics for this drive, which means we can repair that board and get this drive up and going again, as long as the heads and the disk haven't been crashed. And I don't think that they have. There is one final problem that we got to overcome though, and that is that this is 3U tall and I only have 2U of space. But I do have this little 1U spacer right here. This, for some reason, deck built into the cage, it's riveted in place. So I actually got to take a bunch of stuff apart to drill the rivets out for this 1U spacer here. Then I can move the disk, the dual floppy drives up a little bit, slip this guy in, and there'll be plenty of room underneath for the FPS 100, and that should finish out our cabinet here, which is going to be very exciting. And I'm extremely excited about this drive because I love 14-inch hard drives, and I'm always looking for an excuse to get my hands on more 14-inch drives. So that's what we're going to do in the next episode. We're going to dive into this Priam, hopefully make some pretty decent progress on it, and ultimately get it stuffed into this cabinet. So I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.